Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the mmjhl podcast here on G Show Productions. This is episode 8 in season 2, powered by Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Terrico, Goaltenders, and Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools. I'm your host, of course, Graham, the G Show Forsyth. Happy to be here on this Thursday afternoon, as tonight in the mmjhl, well, it's going to kick off with two matchups actually in the league tonight. As we take a look at the schedule, the St. Vital Junior Victoria is at home to take on the River East Royal Knights. That game can be seen on our network tonight on G Show Productions. Puck drop at 7:30 p.m. And Transcona, the Railer Express, coming off of their first loss in a while in OT to the Pembina Valley Twisters this past Sunday, looking for a bounce back against the Stonewall Jets. Coming up on tonight at 8 p.m. in Stonewall at the Stonewall Veterans Memorial Complex. And you had a chance to take a look at the standings here for just a brief moment before I started talking in this episode. But yeah, it's the Charleswood Hawks, who are 2 points up on the Transcone Railer Express. Pembina Valley getting back into the win column with that huge victory over Transcona this past Sunday. For Pembina Valley, they're still dead last in the mmjhl, but closing the gap just a bit between them and the River East Royal Knights for that ninth spot. A three-way tie right now between the Twins, Riels, and the Victorias for third place, although the Vics on a bit of a slide themselves, as they haven't won in a few games now on a losing streak heading into this matchup here tonight. But as for the Charleswood Hawks, one of their best players, and their best players by the points so far this year, in Matt Carlson, will be joining the show next as the first guest in episode 8 of season 2, as Carlson has 19 points in 11 games played so far, tied for 4th in the league in total points, along with Nate Goodbranson from the Raiders Junior Hockey Club. I had a great conversation with Matt earlier today, talking about what this season's been like, the feel from around the team from a player's perspective. We also touch on the past few years, as it's his 3rd season in the league now, as well as those experiences, what he's learned from them, and more on this edition of the mmjhl podcast here on G Show Productions on gshow.ca, with Matt Carlson of the Charleswood Hawks joining the show next. Matt Carlson, number 16, forward and assistant captain of this year's Charleswood Hawks team, one of their assistant captains at least. He's off to quite a start, 19 points in 11 games played, top 5 in points. And his team, the Charleswood Hawks, on a 7-game win streak, 10-1-1 first place currently. Matt, things seemingly coming together early and quickly here for this Charleswood team. Speak about it, being in that room and seeing this all unfold so far to start off so hot.
Yeah, really. It's been a great start for us. I think it comes down to our work ethic and the effort we've been putting in practice. The compete level's high every day. We're on the ice, and I think that definitely translates over to the game. And just our speed. I think we have a really fast team this year, and so far we've been able to use that to our advantage and really take advantage of that.
Yeah, and this team showcasing that they can win in multiple ways during this winning streak, whether it's close games or winning these games handily. And you speak about speed. This is something that's been talked about from the coaching staff, from the front office, to something we've mentioned quite a bit about this year's Hawks team. Do you feel like it's a step up in that aspect from a player standpoint compared to last year to this year?
I wouldn't say so. I would say it's more of the compete level and the effort that's being put in, and just the standard that's being held within the room. I think a lot more guys are being held accountable, which I think then translates onto the ice. And the effort on the ice, obviously this year, has been an issue for us.
Yeah, for sure. And that's been, of course, showcased so far this year. A comeback win against the St. James Junior Canucks in that OT victory a few Sundays ago now. But of course, there's been a few changes from last year's roster to this year, but a good core of returning guys, some good young guns added to this year's team, and, some even more improvements in net with Keegan Gordon with the start he's had so far. You talked about how there's more accountability, and of course, you're wearing an A this year, a part of the leadership group. Do you feel like it starts from, this year's leadership group from top down, or is it something else?
Um, I don't know. It could be. I think it's more of the aspect in the room. Guys want to win this year. Guys kind of the returning guys felt the taste and the bitterness of last year and getting knocked out in the second round for the second straight year. And most of those guys were on the team 2 years ago, which again were knocked out in the second round of the playoffs. So there's been a bittersweet taste, and I think this year the leadership group has really exposed that to the younger guys, and we're using that as motivation for sure to start the season here.
Yeah, and of course, you've been a part of this group for the past two seasons, leading into this one, a part of those back-to-back semifinals losses in the Final Four. Take me through, I guess, those first 2 years, the experience of building up until now with this group and going through what this team's gone through despite the disappointments.
Yeah, it's been great. When I came over to the Hawks here, it I was greeted with open arms. It really started with kind of the management and Tim. He was great. Really made me feel comfortable with the organization, and obviously, I had a little bit of a past with Will Kinsman there, just from previous hockey experiences. So I fit right in there, and I really enjoyed those first 2 years, especially with the group of guys that were older than me that eventually moved on. They were quite good and just mentoring me and teaching me the league. It was a little bit different of a league compared to the MJHL. Smaller ice surfaces, a little bit more physical. So it took a second to adapt there, but once I found my groove, it definitely was quite easy.
Yeah, and definitely having no problems now as you lead this team in points so far, off to the best start of your career and on pace for, of course, career highs this season. But, what's that been like? Of course, like you said, being the younger guy coming in, learning from the guys that had a bit more experience, to now you being that more experienced guy in your last season, wearing a letter, which I know wearing a letter doesn't exactly change, the type of leadership style of the player you're going to be, but how you feel your maturity is at now, I guess, having these years under your belt in the league as well as getting used to that playing style like you talked about.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of the things you learn over the years, you kind of have to pick and choose. There's some good, there's some bad, but everyone's different. But really, for me, what I picked up from those older guys was showing up to the rink every day, no matter what happened during the day, and for however long you're at the rink, it's hockey mode. You go 110% and you give all your effort and do what's asked of you, and you play for the guy next to you. The hockey room isn't just a group of 20 something odd guys in a room playing hockey. There's a little bit of a bond there, and that's something that was really stressed over those two previous years.
Yeah, for sure. And it's really that family type of aspect that you end up building with, like you said, this group of 20 some men. And I mean, for yourself, you've been able to contribute big time for this team. I've already mentioned it, but 19 points in 11 games played. Your previous career high set last year, 29 points in 34 games played. Of course, points not everything, but I mean, I feel like it's been a testament to just the game breaking ability you seem to have this season. This team having a few, players and a lot of players, similar to yourself. Does that make it even easier given, the start you've had playing with this amount of talent that, like you said, is bought in as this group is?
Yeah, and I think we've had a lot of guys really step up. We've had a couple guys leave us over the last year, and some of the young guys who we brought in have really bought in and shown that they have quite a bit of skill to give. And it's not just on the ice, in the room too. They're great guys. They care about the team, and they put the team first. And even some of the returning guys, they realize that, hey, these young guys are coming for my spot, so I got to play hard too. And I think that's just brought the compete level up with us, and it's really good to see.
Right. And I mean, for yourself, obviously, you've been enjoying this start to your year, fourth in the league in points, tied fourth with Nate Goodbranson from the Raiders Junior Hockey Club. But what can you point to with this specifically for yourself, putting up this amount of points to start off this year, getting off to such a good start as you have?
Yeah, really. I think it's just my work ethic. I take care of the defensive zone first, and I don't cheat the game. I I realize that offense wins games, but defense really wins championships. And I think that I attribute that to my success. I could catch those fast breaks, and like I said, use my speed to get into the offensive zone quite easy, especially with these smaller rinks. So I think that just a combination of my speed and not cheating the game really contributes to that.
Yeah, and I think the old cliche is exactly what you said, but it's been so true in so many cases as we've seen throughout the course of time in hockey and several other sports. But this team going up against the Fort Garry Twins coming up tomorrow, and then in Stonewall to finish off the weekend on Sunday. Of course, every team going to be gunning for this Charleswood Hawks team right now, given how hot this team is, and given your placement in the standings. I'm sure that fires this group up even more. How fired up is this group overall heading into this upcoming weekend with four possible points on the line?
Yeah, we're real fired up. We're sitting atop the league here, but I think of Nick Saban. Complacency is the worst thing for a team, because once you get complacent, you start losing. And we're not satisfied with where we're at. We want to put some space between first and second and the rest of the league and really showcase our team's ability here this weekend.
Well, this Hawks team 2 points up on the Railer Express heading into this upcoming weekend of regular season action in the mmjhl. And Nick Saban knows a thing or two about winning championships, as we've seen. This Charleswood Hawks team looking to win their first championship, since 2011, 2012 this season, off to a fantastic start. Matt Carlson, assistant captain, and a big part of this year's Charleswood Hawks team's success so far, joining this edition of the MMJHL podcast. Matt, thanks for taking the time, and best of luck the rest of the way through and this weekend coming up, and I'm sure we'll see you at the rink again sometime here soon.
Appreciate it. Thanks again for having me on, and yeah, for sure, I'll definitely be seeing you around the rink.
And Matt Carlson joining this edition of the MMJHL podcast, brought to you by Macam Fasteners and Tools, Goaltenders, Terrico, and Can Central Sports Cars and Memorabilia, as you saw there on your screen. By the way, during tonight's MMJHL Game Day live stream, we're going to be unveiling our newest commercial with Can Central Sports Cars and Memorabilia. Had to redo it due to some things out of our control, but happy with this final product that we're going to be showcasing you all tonight. We're also going to be putting it on our social media platforms, and also gonna post it as a separate video on our YouTube channel as well. So stay tuned for the release of that tonight. But yeah, Just taking a look at the past week of action in the mmjhl. The week actually started on Thursday, back on Halloween night, where it was the Transcone Railer Express that defeated the St. Vital Junior Victorias by a score of 7-3 that night. But yeah, the start of November saw some close games in there. A game we had on our network in the Hawks defeating the Raiders Junior Hockey Club 5-4 in OT in a very back and forth matchup. As for the Raiders, they were able to get into the win column on Sunday, as well as the Vics. Yeah, their losing streak continuing here. This team was once at the top of the standings in the season, but things change for sure. As for, things, you gotta hope if you're the Pembina Valley Twisters, it's a sign of good things to come. Taking down the Transcone Railer Express, ending their long winning streak, and their hopes to come out of that past weekend, last weekend, with a tie in first in the standings with the Charleswood Hawks, as the Hawks end up staying and sustaining their spot in first with a 5-1 victory over the River East Royal Knights. As for the standings, we showed it to you earlier. Charleswood, no team's been better than them so far. They're the first team to 10 wins as well this season. 3 teams behind them with 8 wins each in the Railer Express, the Twins, as well as the Riels. As for St. James, a huge victory for them over the Twins this past Sunday to end Fort Garry's winning streak. And as for the playoff teams, it still hasn't changed at this point in the season, as River East and Pembina Valley looking to make their way into the playoff picture. That would be their hopes. And for Pembina Valley, well, good start for them. Maybe it's an anomaly by how their record has been, but you gotta fire up when you're able to beat a team like the Transcone Railer Express with how dominant they've been to start off this season, this past weekend. Speaking of, the Fort Garry Twins had a chance to catch up with their team captain in Dean Gorchynski, who currently sits top 3 in the league in points right now, behind Tyler Rubini and Rylan Netchwaduk. It's only his second season in the league, but he is an 0-3, so it's his last one. So yeah, had a chance to ask Dean about what the experience has been like playing for Fort Garry, reconnecting with a school friend, a middle school friend in Rylan Huging as well. We talk about the strong start to this season for Fort Garry compared to last year's, and how Dean feels like it's paid dividends for this team, especially early on so far in the season. And yeah, a whole bunch of other stuff here on this edition of the mmjhl podcast, episode 8, season 2, on G Show Productions, on gshow.ca, number 7 of the Fort Garry Twins and their team captain, Dean Gorchynski, joining the show next. And it's second year forward team captain of this year's Fort Garry Twins squad, number 7, and Dean Gorchynski joining this edition of the mmjhl podcast. Dean, your team coming off of a loss to the St. James Junior Canucks, but hot leading into that one. This team sits near the top of the standings to start off this mmjhl regular season. How are the boys feeling so far, despite coming off of that most recent loss?
I think the boys are all feeling pretty good. I think we came into the season with some pretty high expectations for ourselves. We only lost, I think, 3 guys from our team last year, so we are pretty confident coming into this year. And it's been a blast. I mean, it's always fun, going to the rink for practice or games. And yeah, I think the team's been doing pretty good lately, and I think it'll continue to do so.
Yeah, this team right now currently tied for third with the Riels and the Vics. But as you know, in your rookie year last year, this was a team that was out of a playoff spot for a while in the season, then got hotter and hotter as the season came to a close. The regular season, that is, placing 6th, losing in that first round to the Riels, but off to a much better start this year. How huge do you feel this, as being a part of the group, is for this group to start off this strong?
I think the start is huge. Last year, we dug quite the hole for ourselves, and our team we get pretty streaky. Lose a couple in a row or win a couple in a row, and I think we do need to fix that. Kind of come out a little more consistent. But yeah, the start is quite big. Those points really do matter, as we found out last year. I think we had to squeak out a lot of wins and play pretty hard there, so we're pretty beat up going into playoffs with injuries and just guys worn down. So it'd be nice to have our spot more solidified this year going into it.
No, for sure. And of course, it's a new season, but taking a look at last season for yourself, you were a huge part of that team's success. 76 points, 26 penalty minutes, 59 assists, 17 goals in those 42 games played. Take me back to last year, coming into this new situation, being able to put up that type of impact that you did.
Yeah, so I came back, 5 games into the year, and a lot of my friends that I grew up playing with growing up or like went to high school with play on the Twins. So that was kind of my reasoning for coming back. And then on top of that, I've played with quite a few of the guys through my career. So I think the chemistry that we've had before and we kind of built on it. And I think there's a quite a deep team. So you kind of we mix and match lines and throw whoever with whoever, and it kind of just works out well. So yeah, it's whatever we're doing is working.
Right. Well, it's nice when you're able to have that chemistry that's already there, of course. And you were quite the playmaker last season, of course, quite the playmaker this year with 5 goals and 17 assists. But take me through, I mean, your game out there as a player. Are you more of that pass first player, or are you maybe not that and just happens that you're able to put the
No, I definitely am a pass first guy. I think I've heard a lot from my dad and coaches and even myself watching games back that like there is some times where I should shoot the puck a little more, but that's kind of always just how I played. And we've got a lot of guys on our team who can put the puck in the back of the net, so it's pretty fun making passes when guys can score, and it's kind of just always the way I played.
Oh, for sure. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? I mean, I know when I played, not as high of a level as this, but I was always looking to make the pass first usually, because sometimes that's the right play, right? And I mean, you
Yeah, I mean
that on
sometimes
the ice, and
backdoor
uh,
tap in's a pretty easy one to score versus a shot with the goalie in front of you. So sometimes I think like that.
exactly. And why not embarrass the other team's defense a bit, right? But
Yeah,
going back
exactly.
door with that. But yeah, I mean, you talked about goal scorers. You get to play with one of the league's best from last season, Rylan Huging. What's that been like? I've had a chance to ask him about his perspective on the duo, but your thoughts so far early in this year getting to play with a guy like Rylan.
Yeah, it's awesome both on and off the ice. We went to middle school together and we've known each other for quite a while and we hang out all the time. So it's awesome to have him in the room. And then on top of that, he proved that he can put the puck in the back of the net last year, and he's been doing it so far this year. And it's just another guy that when I pass the puck and put it in the back of the net. So it's just super nice to play with him.
Right, only adds to the talent that this year's Twins team has, especially out of that returning talent quite a bit there. But you are this year's team captain, of course, taking over from Sloan or who off
Yep,
the top of my head, it
Lone
was
Trombley.
Tremblay last year. So taking over from Sloan, what's that been like? Wearing the C and being this year's captain.
It was a huge honor. Sloan still he helps out for I guess he's an assistant coach on our team this year. I don't know if that's his official title, but he's at all our practices and games, so it's nice to have him there. And he did a really good job last year. So kind of just watching him and watching everyone else that's been captains on team I've played on before, and kind of just picking up little things from them and seeing what works. And it's just a big honor, and I'm really proud to do it.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, like, there's always things that you can take away from that experience of just playing with, a guy like Sloan. But having him here after his playing days in the mmjhl, he's still committed to this Twins team. How huge has, I guess, that been as a captain to have him closer by your side this year compared to maybe?
Yeah, it's awesome. He's still down in the room hanging out with us before practice and cracking jokes and stuff. And so it's just awesome to have him around. He's a great guy. I knew him before in high school. I worked with him a little bit and then played with him last year. But yeah, it's really awesome to have him there at the rink every day.
And of course, everyone may have a bit of a different type of leadership style. How would you describe yours and Dean Gorchynski's leadership style as a captain?
Uh, I'd like to say I'm decently vocal. Like I like to talk to the guys, maybe when stuff isn't going right. Maybe not the scream at them type of guy, but I like to, think of plays that'll work or see things that the other team's doing and try and give the guys some insight on what works to beat it and stuff like that. I found, a lot of the guys know their own game and know what they can do. So just kind of being supportive and building confidence for guys is the best way I've found.
Right, and that's I think a good way to handle it throughout this process, and that's something that's been preached quite a bit by your head coach and Scott Wong is focusing on that process, not as much looking at the wins. At least when I talked to him, when preseason was going on. But this team's process so far, one of the best defensive teams in the league, not giving up many shots against and putting the puck in the net. Talk about I guess when this Fort Garry team is able to play to their strengths, to play to their game. What type of tests you boys will give other teams in this league.
Yeah, I think we're a really good team. I think when we come out and score the first goal or two of a game, that we're a really strong team. I know it kind of works the same way with wins, but when we're hot, we're really good, and we move the puck super quick from the back end up to the forwards, and we've got lots of skill from the first to fourth line on our team, and guys kind of just put the puck in the net every different kind of way there is.
Yeah, and of course, lots of weapons on this year's Twins team. But you had spoken, I guess, about the consistency, a bit of a streaky team last year, and that sometimes costed the squad. How do you think or what do you think it's going to take for this team to play more of a consistent brand of hockey, not only as we saw through October, but through the rest of the way here?
Yeah, I think that just having everyone kind of show up to games last year, we had a little problem with just numbers at some of the games or at practices, with injuries or guys have other commitments and stuff. But we seem to be a lot more committed in that way as like showing up to games and stuff. I know it sounds silly, but having that really helps. And I think we can get scoring from every part of our lineup. And I think if we do that, we can be consistent the whole year.
Oh, for sure. And as silly as that may sound, you just got to show up to the rink. I mean, that's been the case in a lot of the outcomes of the wins for these teams. It's whoever comes to the rink ready to play and shows up more is usually going to have the advantage. And I mean, both these teams looking to come ready to play into this Friday's matchup as this Twins team heading in to play the Charleswood Hawks at Eric Coy Arena. They're the number one team in the league right now. Obviously, a lot of motivation for this Twins team going in against the Charleswood team. What's the excitement level for this one coming up this weekend and a big
It,
Friday night tilt?
it's always a big one. It was definitely a rivalry right when I showed up here. I could tell that the guys who had played here previously had definitely had a little bit of a grudge to hold against the Charleswood team. So they're always a battle. I always look forward to them, and they're a good team. So it'd be a good one to knock them off.
And then a game we got on the network coming up this Sunday. Of course, it's a different season now, but kind of always fun when you're able to renew a rivalry that was kind of built last year throughout the playoffs against the St. Boniface Riels. Lost to them in the quarterfinals. Of course, both teams coming into this year, some good rosters. That one to end off the weekend. The preparation for that, looking to, I guess, put last year behind it and focusing on a new slate against this Real squad.
Yeah, we definitely renewed the rivalry in preseason this year. We had a good brawl with them, so it's alive and well for sure between us and St. Boniface. And they're always physical games. They're always tight games, I find, and I think they're quite a good team. They've got lots of skill up and down their lineup, and they move pucks fast, and they're a very physical team. So it's not always the most fun one to play, but they're a battle, and it'd be good to get 4 points this weekend.
Yeah, and going to be a lot of skill on that rink coming up on Sunday at Southdale Arena. This Twins team going to be in action on Friday night, as mentioned, against the Charleswood Hawks. But Dean Gorchynski, team captain of this Fort Garry Twins squad, joining this edition of the MMJHL podcast. Dean, can't wait to watch you again playing coming up this season here on the network, and best of luck to you and the rest of the squad heading forward this year.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for having me on.
Dean Gorchynski, number 7, and team captain of this year's Fort Garry Twins team in the Manitoba Major Junior Hockey League, joining this edition of the MMJHL podcast here on G Show Productions, brought to you by Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Mid-Canton Fasteners and Tools, as you saw on the screen during that last interview, as well as Terrico and goaltenders as well. As for your goalie's personal video review service, got to resize my camera here for a moment. There we go. But yeah, for Dean, he's enjoying quite the start to his season here as we take a look at the goals, assist leaders, as well as the points leaders and goaltending leaders coming up here. Brought to you by Ken Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia. Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store. It's Gorchynski, who's now top 2 in assists, 17 assists compared to Rylan Nechwaduk, who has 20. The difference here being that Nechwaduk with 9 games played compared to Gorchynski's 12. But still impressive stuff there from Dean. As for Matt Carlson, he's also on this list, a bit further down in terms of the total, but tied fourth with Connor Davis, captain of the St. Boniface Riels. And if we take a look at the points leaders, well, it's Carlson and Gorchynski who are separated by a spot. For Gorchynski, 3 more points than Carlson, with 1 more game played than him. The difference between their 2 stat lines, Carlson with 8 goals, 11 assists, Gorchynski 5 goals, 17 assists. Speaking of the Charleswood Hawks, Keegan Gordon, 10 wins, only 1 loss, and a 9.31 save percentage. Paul's also making this list for the Fort Garry Twins, with a 4-1 record, a 9.26 save percentage. The duo for the, or I guess the tandem, as I should say, for the St. Boniface Riels, rounding out that top 5. For full stats and to see other things surrounding the MMJHL, be sure to visit their website at mmjhl.ca for more details. We're going to take a quick little transition here, and then I'm going to be back to talk about some updated power rankings we have for you to show you all today, as well as previewing this upcoming week of action in the MMJHL. No highlights, unfortunately, today, as we did run into some technical difficulties with the downloads this time. And by the way, those are my friends right there, I guess, some bobbleheads to the right of me. We'll be back, me and the bobbleheads, I guess, coming up here on the MMJHL podcast on G-Show Productions on gshow.ca. Man, did I just say G-Show podcast? I meant the MMJHL podcast. Welcome back, everybody, to episode 8 here in season 2. And yeah, if we take a look right now at the standings in the Manitoba Major Junior Hockey League, heading into the upcoming weekend of action, or the upcoming week of action. I guess the weekend, since most of the teams starting on Friday in their schedule of play. But yeah, for Charleswood, they're looking to keep atop of the standings, sustaining first place this upcoming weekend. For the St. Vital Junior Victorias, a weekend for them where they're looking to bounce back big after they've dropped their last few games in a row. It started with that loss in overtime to the St. James Junior Canucks 2 weekends ago now, and since then this team not being able to get back into the win column, but they're going to be getting a boost back in their lineup, which we'll talk about in just a little bit here. Pembina Valley and River East both still outside of a playoff spot, but for Pembina Valley, things looking a bit brighter for them after taking down the Transcon Railer Express in overtime, winning 4-3 this past Sunday in Winnipeg. So they were in town for that matchup. But yeah, as for the results, if we take a look at it here, for teams like the Fort Garry Twins, they were able to extend their winning streak at the time, and then of course that ending against the St. James Junior Canucks on a strong finish to their weekend on Sunday. And I think for St. James, a team in their past few games where you suffer a shutout to the Railer Express, and then you lose in a hard-fought battle to the Charleswood Hawks last Sunday in a game where I guess 2 Sundays ago now, but in a game where you were up in that one 4-2, and you're not able to hold on, losing 5-2 in OT, or 5-4 in OT, and yeah, you end up losing on Friday against the Stonewall Jets 5-2. So huge for this St. James Junior Canucks team with that win against the Fort Garry Twins, as they're able to keep some separation between them and the teams that aren't in the playoffs below them right now. And definitely St. James will be looking to make a move higher up into the standings as the season goes along, now that it seems like they are in full force in terms of having all players on their roster back. For the St. Boniface Riels, I mean, this was a strong past weekend for them too, where they end up winning 2 games in a row, crushing Pembina Valley on Friday night, and then, handling their business against the Stonewall Jets on Sunday, where in that matchup, it ended up, actually being a push in that third period from the Stonewall Jets, as they ended up being down 4-1. They scored 2 unanswered in the third period, but it wasn't enough, as the Riels were able to fight them off, fend off the, absolute smothering attack that Stonewall started to play with as they caught momentum in that game. But as we take a look at the power rankings, Week 7 power rankings brought to you by Make Canada Fasteners and Tools here on the mmjhl podcast. It's the Hawks who move up a spot over the Railer Express, given that this Hawks team is now the current hottest team in the league with 7 wins in a row. That game still for the Railer Express that they lost to the Pembina Valley Twisters, they recorded 51 shots in that one, so it wasn't like they were having it handed to them in the shots or anything like that. It was just a game where, if we do take a look back at it, Pembina Valley able to tie it in the third period after, Transcona goes up 23 seconds into that third frame off of the power play. And I guess for that wins for the Twisters, I mean, look, the River East Royal Knights have another winless weekend here, and the Twisters, even though they have a worse record than the Knights, able to beat one of the hottest teams in the league in the Railers that past weekend. So that's why the Twisters move up a spot. But yeah, for the Railer Express in that game, they outshoot the Twisters 51-29, and of course they were up to start up that third period. So I think for the Railers, even though you lose to the last place team, something had to give. Pembina Valley was going to win at one point, and it was just one of those games where you kind of got goalied, and you weren't able to finish the job, and you kind of let things slip. But I don't think that performance warrants them dropping any more than one spot down the list. The Twins, even though they lose to the St. James Junior Canucks, I hold them at 3. This has been a team that has been playing really well as the season has gone along, and yeah, that loss that they had to the Canucks, they actually outshot the Canucks in that game as well. As for the Riels and the Raiders, they get a +1 bump, while the Vics a -2 bump, simply for the fact that the Vics haven't won a hockey game. Taking a look at the schedule right now, for the Victorias, haven't won in quite some time, and this is a team that, their past game against the Raiders Junior Hockey Club, it was a close one. It ends up going into OT, but yeah, gotta give the Raiders a bump there, because they're only 1 point behind the Vics in the standings now. This is a team that also kept them close in their first 2 meetings of the season and wasn't able to eke it out. So yeah, for the Raiders, huge win for them. They get that bump up. But for the Vics, they haven't won since October 17th against the Pembina Valley Twisters. Since then, losing 4-3 in OT to St. James, then 5-1 to Charleswood, 6-1 to Fort Garry, 7-3 last Thursday to Transcona, and then a closer matchup, like I said, against the Raiders Junior Hockey Club, losing it there last Sunday at Seven Oaks. But yeah, the Jets and the Canucks holding their spots there at 7 and 8. I don't think they did anything this past weekend to, move up or move down. So yeah, those are our Week 7 power rankings, brought to you by Make Canada Fasteners and Tools. In terms of a team I could see rise up in the power rankings again, if the Vics are able to have a huge weekend, they could very well move back up into the top 4. And, we're going to monitor, how teams like the Twins and teams like Stonewall and the Canucks do this upcoming weekend too, because they, of course, don't move in the power rankings. Could see some movement from them coming up in next week's show. But as for the schedule for this week in the MMJHL, as mentioned, plenty of action coming your way. There's actually only going to be 3 games played coming up on Friday night this week instead of the usual 4 matchups in the league. That's because there's going to be a matchup that's going to be played on Saturday night. Transcona taking on the River East Royal Knights, the St. Vital Junior Victorias, and the Stonewall Jets both hosting their opponents. And for the Jets, the Railer Express tonight in Stonewall, and for River East traveling to St. Vital to face off against the Vics tonight to kick off this week 8 of action in the league. As for Transcona and River East, since they play on Saturday night, they won't be in action this upcoming Sunday, as there'll be 4 games to end off week 8's action in this league. Some really good games on tap, some that obviously we're going to see some close ones. We may see a few blowouts in here, but I'm excited to see Charleswood against Fort Garry. Like Dean spoke about, it's a rivalry that he felt right away when he came here, and this is a team that, of course, for Fort Garry has some former Hawks on them, and Rylan Huging, and I think Tazio Cianflone also spent a few games in his mmjhl career with Charleswood. That could have just been in preseason, though. So, yeah, there's familiarity between these two teams. These are two teams that last played at the start of the season on Sunday of the opening weekend, where Charleswood took that matchup against Fort Garry by a close score. So it's going to be a close game again for, I think on Sunday's matchup, St. Boniface taking on Fort Garry. Both of these teams have actually played each other already in this season, and I mean, for St. Boniface and Fort Garry, these are two teams that have, played each other in the quarterfinals of last year's Elite 8 playoffs round, and it was, St. Boniface and Fort Garry. You ended up, playing a pretty tight series at the end of it, as St. Boniface was up 3-0, and Fort Garry ends up winning 2 games to stave off elimination, and the Reals are able to finish them off again. These are two teams with a lot of returning talent on their roster, and two teams that have been among the best to start off this season, and two teams that should give us a pretty close game coming up on mmjhl game day on that Sunday afternoon in the Manitoba Major Junior Hockey League's action. But as for us, we've been talking about it all show long. Guess who's back tonight? It's Rylan Netchwaduk back again. He'll be returning to the Victoria's lineup as they look to get back into the win column. Of course, as mentioned, this squad hasn't won since October 17th. It's November 7th, and this team probably chomping at the bit for this one tonight. Probably going to come and fire it up against the River East Royal Knights, where after starting off 2-0, this team, only 1 win in their past 10 games. So something's got to give tonight for one of these two teams. This picture, of course, the rights go to the Winnipeg Free Press. Found it from them on the internet. But excited to see this duo back in action. Netchwaduk and Rubini. Puck drops for the Victorias and the Royal Knights tonight at 7:30 p.m. Our pre-game show coverage is set to start just after 7:20 p.m., barring any technical difficulties, of course. But be sure to catch it on gshow.ca on gshow Productions tonight. It's going to be great. We'll be broadcasting Transcona's Saturday night matchup against the River East Royal Knights, as well as the Riel's Sunday afternoon affair against the Fort Garry Twins. But with that, we are going to send it to one more transition. I'll be back here to give you some final words on this edition of the mmjhl podcast for episode 8, season 2, here on gshow Productions. Well, you made it to the end of another edition of the Manitoba Major Junior Hockey League podcast. Special thanks to Dean Gorchynski as well as Matt Carlson for coming on this episode and being the guests for episode 8 in season 2. Episode 9 of season 2 comes out next Thursday. You won't want to miss it. Time is to be determined for right now. Stay up to date with when our episodes are going to be coming up by either checking out our website at gshow.ca. On socials, we post all of our information about what's to come in the upcoming week as well. And if you turn on notifications and subscribe here to our YouTube channel, that's another way you can be notified about when episodes like this will be coming out. So you'll simply get the notification there. But in all seriousness, I guess, about that front, about the subscriber thing. If you are new here, or if you have been watching this podcast for a while now through these first 8 episodes, doesn't hurt to subscribe so you can truly stay up to date with what we're going to be releasing on our YouTube channel. Is anything we release, you'll get the notifications. So what better way to know when this podcast drops than having notifications turned on, right? But if you don't subscribe, that's okay too, but be sure to, share, like, comment, potentially show your support in any way so we can get this podcast with more eyes on it, so we can truly showcase to many people how great this league really is. Special thanks to you, the viewer, of course, for tuning in today, as well as our sponsors for sponsoring another edition of the mmjhl podcast, and goaltenders Mid-Canton Fasters and Tools, Terrico, and Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia. Remember, I said earlier in the episode tonight, be sure to stay tuned for our Can Central Sports Cards Memorabilia commercial release, which will be dropping during the MMJHL Game Day live stream at St. Vital tonight. Very excited for what's in store for not only tonight, but next week in the MMJHL podcast for episode 9 in season 2. And excited to see what's in store for this week 8 of regular season action in this very underrated hockey league here in the province of Manitoba. But until next time, folks, I've been your host, Graham, the G Show Forsyth. So happy to be here once again, fired up on this Thursday. Getting hyped for tonight's matchup. Should be a good one, maybe a rowdy one in St. Vital. Can't quite tell as of yet, but we'll get a better sense of the vibes once we're in the arena. It's Graham the G Show Forsyth giving you this sleep, peacing out and saying so long on this Thursday, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your Thursday. Have a wonderful Friday tomorrow. A wonderful and safe weekend. And until 7 days from now, we'll see you again for episode 9, season 2 of the MM podcast. Take care, everybody.